Welcome to this new automotive news video, the first video of the week of June 8th, 2026. Today, we're going to talk about Chinese car brands, BYD, MG, and also Chipeng. All these Chinese car brands are affected by exactly the same problem, which is going to cost their owners thousands of euros. Car brands are raising prices due to a new European regulation banning combustion engines, though this ban might be reconsidered. I hope this first video of the week will interest you. If that's the case, as usual, I'm counting on you to show your support for my channel for free. For that, you can of course leave a like on this video, boost it if the option appears for you, subscribe for the next ones, and of course, leave a comment where you share your opinion on today's news. Chinese electric cars are becoming more and more common on our European roads. It's true that their prices are often much more attractive than those offered by European manufacturers, but also thanks to a significant lead in electric car technology. Brands that were completely unknown to the general public a few years ago, like MG, BYD, or Leapmotor, are attracting more and more European customers. But behind these attractive prices lies a question that many buyers are starting to ask. Will a Chinese car bought today still be worth something on the market in a few years? Because according to several recent studies, all of which came out around the same time, the savings made at the time of purchase could be partially or even completely wiped out when reselling the vehicle. For example, according to data from the German specialist DAT, which collects and analyzes a whole range of data specific to the automotive market, electric and plug-in hybrid cars from Chinese brands lose their value much more than their competitors from European brands. In other words, what looks like a very good deal today could turn into a significant financial loss tomorrow. For owners of Chinese vehicles, whether they are private individuals or dealerships, since indeed dealerships are also starting to realize that all the Chinese vehicles they have sold, especially through leasing or long-term rental, have been largely overestimated, and that the amount of the lease payments is, in the end, far too low to make the operation profitable. So why do Chinese cars lose value even faster than the competition? The first factor put forward by specialists is a lack of trust from European customers in Chinese brands. When you buy a used car, you know you're not buying a new car, you know you're buying a car that's already got several tens of thousands of kilometers on it. The issue with Chinese brands is that they haven't been in Europe long enough yet, so that we know in advance if spare parts for a used car will still be available in a few years. Imagine if the brand goes bankrupt in Europe or pulls out. What happens when you need to replace the batteries or another vehicle part? How will the vehicle age? Especially since Chinese brands are still new to the market. We're starting to see models that are more than 3 or 4 years old. And some of them already have problems we're not used to seeing on cars this new, like premature rust, for example. Even without that, it's fair to wonder how these cars will age in 5 to 10 years. Whereas with a French, German, or Italian brand, we already have a pretty good idea of what to expect. Even when a Chinese vehicle ages and is technically well made, all these doubts directly affect its trade-in prices and its value on the used car market. The used electric car market is already quite complicated to begin with. On average, taking into account all the brands that sell electric cars in Europe, after 3 years. In England, for example, an electric car is only worth 38% of its original value, compared to 45 to 50% for a gasoline or hybrid car. And in Germany, France, or Spain, after 3 years, they're only worth 46% compared to about 55 to 60% for a gasoline or hybrid car. The problem is that this is an average. You have to consider that some cars, like Tesla, hold their resale value very well. But you also have to take into account that some cars, like the well-known Chinese cars, lose their value extremely quickly. According to the DAT, Chinese brand cars depreciate twice as fast as the market average. This situation is directly linked to one of the main strengths of Chinese brands, their speed of innovation. Today, Chinese brands are able to renew their models extremely quickly. The batteries are evolving very fast, and so is the software. It's perfect for new car buyers because they're sure to get a car with the latest technologies. But it's a huge headache for anyone who bought their Chinese car a few years ago and now wants to resell it. The faster technology evolves, the more previous models risk appearing outdated. And the more an owner will have to lower the selling price of their car in hopes of finding a buyer. What's quite worrying is that in reality, the situation isn't getting any better. In fact, the opposite is happening. Another study published by the DAT highlights the scale of the phenomenon. In April 2024, the average residual value of a Chinese hybrid or electric car was about 61% of its original price. 2 years later, in April 2026, this residual value dropped to just 47%. A dramatic fall in a very short time. What's happening is that Chinese brands are shaking up the new car market. They've really exploded their market share. Now, more than 8% of new cars sold across Europe are from these brands. But in the used car market, buyers are not very interested in Chinese vehicles for all these reasons. As a result, there are simply more and more of them. The supply is skyrocketing, while for now, demand isn't really growing. In any case, for a European driver, the subject deserves to be taken seriously. A Chinese electric car can be a very good deal for someone who plans to keep it for a as long as it ages well. On the other hand, for a buyer who regularly changes vehicles or plans to resell it quickly, the financial risk today appears to be much higher than for their European competitors, which certainly lose a lot of value on the electric market, but still much less. And on the topic of lost money, there's more bad news that could impact all European drivers, regardless of whether they drive a Chinese car. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out that the price of new cars is going to increase again. While some people this weekend were pleased to see that the average price of a new car in France had dropped by a few dozen euros, prices are going to rise again because of a new European regulation. Starting from November 29, 2026, the new Euro 7 standard will come into effect for all approved models in Europe. Whether they are electric, hybrid, or combustion engine, it doesn't matter. All vehicles, no matter the engine type, must comply. This regulation will cause new car prices to soar, though reasons may differ by engine type. What you need to know is that this Euro 7 standard will target a whole range of different pollutants. Some will only affect combustion engine cars, while others will concern absolutely all types of vehicles, including electric cars. For combustion engine vehicles, manufacturers will be required to provide, for example, pollution control systems like particulate filters or AdBlue systems that are guaranteed to remain effective for at least 10 years or 200,000 kilometers. The batteries of electric cars will have to meet minimum durability requirements. And for all cars, regardless of the engine type, manufacturers will now have to comply with new requirements regarding the particles emitted by their tires and brakes. The European Commission then estimated the financial impact would be limited. They estimated that the additional manufacturing cost for a car would be between 90 and 300 euros. It was already expected that new car prices would rise by 90 to 300 euros on average. However, as often happens, the European Commission's calculations were inaccurate. And on the manufacturer's side, they're talking more about a price increase that should reach between 200 and 1,000 euros per vehicle. The first manufacturer getting ready to raise the price of its cars because of this new regulation is Volkswagen, which has announced to its dealership network a price increase of 1% across all models in the range, whether they are combustion, hybrid, or electric. Specifically, that means an extra 400 euros for a Volkswagen Tiguan, for example. Volkswagen is the first to take the step, but everyone will have to follow since everyone will have to absorb the cost of this new Euro 7 standard. And it goes without saying that none of them will agree to cut into their profit margins to finance the development or production of these new vehicles, their new batteries, or their new pollution control systems. What we saw this weekend, a slight drop in new car prices, is only temporary. It's just a short pause before another wave of automotive inflation hits by year's end. But the Euro 7 standard may just be the beginning, as drivers worry about higher car costs while a bigger conflict unfolds among Europe's leaders. Indeed, no one agrees anymore on the future of combustion engines. All the major car-producing countries, Germany, Italy, all the Eastern European countries, are trying to get the European Commission to pass new laws that would allow them to keep selling internal combustion cars after 2040. And then there are countries with almost no car industry left, like France. Sorry, France, your car industry isn't what it once was. Or countries like Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Portugal, or other countries that benefit from electrification, like Spain, which is currently taking advantage of all the Chinese brands coming to Europe to produce electric cars. These countries are strongly opposed to Germany and Italy and want to maintain the ban on combustion engines. This is where it gets interesting, and it says a lot about how the European Commission works. The thing is, these 7 countries are numerous enough to form a blocking minority. That means that even though together they only represent 35% of the total population of the European Union, well, they're powerful enough, at least on paper, to prevent a postponement of the end of combustion engines, even though that's what countries representing 65% of the European population want. So, for France and Spain, there will be no turning back. They want to rush toward all electric, with decisions that are still particularly hard to understand, because, at the same time, we're also learning that the European Commission wants to do everything it can to limit electricity consumption by European households. This information isn't really about automobiles, but it was released this weekend. While the European Commission keeps insisting daily that we switch to electric cars and electrify more of everyday life, it still wants us to use less electricity, among other things, to keep some in reserve. And keeping power to supply data centers, to supply servers for the benefit of artificial intelligence, we really are living in a remarkable world in any case. I hope you found this little video interesting. If that's the case, I count on you to show it by leaving a like, subscribing, and possibly supporting me by clicking the join button below this video. See you tomorrow for the next automotive news video. Thanks for watching. Bye.